Hey guys, for those of you that weren't able to make the lesson today, so here's a brief explanation as to what you guys are going to be going through and doing. So if you have not sent me the uh, parabola of the object that you found around your house, try doing that as soon as you can. I'll try compiling those and sending them out tomorrow so that you guys can all see all the different work that you guys are doing as you go through and do this. The second thing that you guys will be doing and kind of looking at today is finding something that moves in a specific parabolic motion. So, for example, here I'm going to be looking at shooting a cannon at a fort. So, whether you're playing some type of game or kind of watching something on like the History Channel or some of that sort, just going through and seeing how you can use a parabola to kind of look and see the different roots of the function and how you can kind of go through and match this up and kind of show the parabolic motion that the cannonball would take as it's going from the cannon to the fort. So how we would do that in Desmo. So if you would just find a couple pictures. So I found these two kind of cartoon pictures online and I put them both on the graph. So you guys can go through and do that. If you are still having trouble with that, you would just save the images. And then if you click on add item, you can upload an image as well. So then that you can upload as many as you want onto the graph. But how you would go about doing this is you would create our functions that we've kind of looked at. We looked at it throughout the past couple days. So we want to create a parabola, but we're doing it in terms of the roots. So my first root is at 0. So I'm going to make this negative because my motion of the parabola is going downward. So if it's going upwards in the shape of a U, then it will be positive. But since it's going downwards, we're making it negative. So our first value is at 0. Our first root here is at 0. So we're going to make it so that it's just x, because if I plug in 0 for x, you get 0. But in this case, the second one, the root is at 100. So if I make my second root x minus 100, well, if I plug in 100 into this part right here, I would end up getting 0 as well. So that's why those two would end up being the roots. If we look at this parabola, though, this actually goes out really and goes up really high. It actually goes up to over 2,000. So what we actually want to do is we want to make it so it's a little more realistic. So what we can do is we can change the a value of this function and make it smaller. The smaller that we make it, the lower that parabola will end up getting. So if I make this, zero point 0.5, it's still kind of high up there. If I make it say 0.1, it's still up there. So let's put a 0 in front of it. And this makes a little bit more sense. So let's make it 0.02. Or if I'm shooting this cannon, this is kind of the path that the cannonball would have to take in order to get there. You can make it, a little bit lower if you wanted to. You can make it even lower than that by putting another 0 there. You can make it a little bit higher if you wanted, so 0.3 or 0.25. There's a bunch of different ways that you can look at doing it. Right here, this one's kind of nice because the high point is right at 50. So you can go through and you can look at doing that. So what your guys' lesson for the day and what your assignment is for what you're going to be doing is I want you to try thinking of as many different parabolic motions as you can go through in the real world. So whether it's shooting a basketball or, if you're playing some sports, there's a ton of different ways doing it that way, or anything else in the real world. If you're kind of free falling at any point, and kind of looking at these different types of parabolic motions, you can go through, and I want you to go through and actually create a graph similar to this with your own different images. In this case, it obviously doesn't have to be at 100. Say if I wanted to, I could make this for it closer, or I could even move it further away. So if this was at 120, all I would have to do is change this to 120. And if you even want to take it a step further, you can go through and actually put in the domain of the function. X is less than or equal to 120. So between 120 and 0. 120. So, and it would just kind of go from 0 to 120. So that would make this graph look a little bit nicer as you go through and do that. So it's kind of up to you, however you guys want to do it. But I want to see as many different uh, ways that you can kind of relate a parabolic motion into the real world. Whereas you're shooting something like shooting like a basketball can work, or in this case, shooting a cannon at a fort. But there's a bunch of different ways you can think of it. I know if you ever played like Angry Birds online, that's another way that you can kind of see, and it actually shows you the parabola as it goes through it, which is kind of neat. So go through and do that, and then you can take a screenshot of it. So I can take a screenshot of what I just did here, and then that's what I would send in an email to me. If you don't have my email address, it's dcorcoran@sehs.net. So just send it to there. And other than that, you guys will be good to go. I'll kind of compile them all for tomorrow. And actually, whoever comes up with the most different ways and sends me the most different things will end up winning a prize at the end. So let me know if you guys have any questions or issues with it. But other than that, you guys have a good day, and I will see you tomorrow.